In the 6 years we've known each other, we probably have 4, maybe 5 photos together. I think the last time we hung out one-on-one was 3 months ago, and yet Carly Francis is by far the most important person in my life. Her mind is sharp and thorough. I see it in her leftist Instagram stories. I see it in her rich ability to psychoanalyze. I see it in her innate skill in coming up with middle school code names for people. And even though she fainted during my quinceañera mass, thinks rice is better eaten with a spoon than a fork, is unhealthily obsessed with frogs, and truly believes that marinara sauce is spicy, I still think Carly is without fault. Carly, Ted Allen may be there in the 3rd row, but I'll always be supporting you from a front seat spot. You are the blue to my red, and it is my absolute pleasure to introduce my very best friend, Carly Francis.
If you know anything about me, it's probably that I'm pretty political. Being involved in politics has given me more joy and meaning than anything else in my life. Through it, I've made countless friends who share my passions. I've strengthened my sense of community and belonging by joining large groups of organized individuals and gained a distinct feeling of purpose in life. What started as a cursory interest in debate slowly evolved into voracious political research, and the more I learned about, the more my interest changed from a focus on law and diplomacy to a focus on human relationships and the way that power dynamics throughout history influence our living conditions and happiness. At first blush, it might seem like politics is dull and tedious. However, fundamentally, politics is just about the organization and distribution of power in a society. It affects absolutely everything about how we live our lives, from who is allowed to make art and music and what kind of art and music they make, to what we watch, read, and write about. It affects our health, it affects our relationships, it affects our quality of life, and just about everything else. If you want to secure better healthcare for your family or your community, if you want to protect the rainforests or eliminate poverty, that is all politics. You may be averse to politics for one reason or another, whether you think it's boring, upsetting, or unimportant. And unfortunately, this kind of mindset is both encouraged by the social taboo of discussing politics and often intentionally imposed or manufactured. Especially as young people and especially as Americans, we are often convinced that politics is just something we argue about and nothing more, when in fact it is the most important aspect of our society and the source of suffering, inequality, and injustice. The majority of people being uninvolved in politics protects those in power and prevents the world from looking the way that you want it to look. In addition, many pretend that there is no right or wrong in politics, only difference of opinion. However, if your end goal is increasing human happiness, this is categorically untrue. There are policies that increase human happiness and those that decrease it, and the policy that leads us towards increased prosperity and progress is the right policy. Policies that hurt human beings by causing suffering are not just to be disagreed with, but actively fought against. You have to attack the problems you see at the root, which is invariably power, and the root of power is politics. Getting involved with a group of people to share in your learning, your advocacy, and your struggle gives an unquantifiable amount of color, richness, and purpose to life. I don't have a lot of time, but I'm using this speech as my one chance to talk to as many young people as possible. The world can be a scary place, and some things are getting scarier, but you are not powerless. I encourage you above all to be involved in the organization of power within your communities. I urge you to promote progress, equality, and human flourishing to the best of your ability, and I implore you to read and learn as much as you can about the kinds of power structures that control society, both for better and for worse. You can be a part of making change. Just because things are the way that they are doesn't mean that's the way they ought to be. And with just a little bit of effort, you can partake in changing things to make them better for everybody. There is a better world that is possible, and we can create it. Don't let anybody convince you otherwise.